Ms. Legalista here. Thank you for joining the video. Healthcare fraud. Healthcare fraud. I know most of you are thinking, what's this got to do with me? Well, in this case, it has a lot to do with you or maybe someone in your family, maybe someone you care about, because I want you to understand how they targeted people, for unnecessary medical procedures. I have talked about this in other videos, trying to get you to understand that sometimes if we are not really in contact with some of our family members who may be on their own, they may be seniors, they may not have someone really looking after them and having conversations with them and their physician about care. This is how these things happen. I want to start with listening to the U.S. Attorney General on this because he's going to tell you a little bit about this. And they didn't just charge people, they seized cash. They seized jewelry, gold, vehicles. They went after them hard. They're letting people know we're not going to let you off the hook on this. We are going to come after you with everything that we have.
And healthcare fraud schemes. In addition to the charges and arrests being announced today, we are also announcing that we have seized over $230 million in cash, luxury vehicles, gold, and other assets in connection with these cases. The Justice Department has been clear that we will bring to justice criminals who defraud Americans and steal from taxpayer-funded programs. We have a particularly aggressive approach to combating healthcare fraud schemes that put people in danger for the sake of profits. Our approach is guided by our commitment to protecting the taxpayer-funded programs they rely on. That is why in the District of Arizona, we charged 2 wound care company owners and 2 nurse practitioners in a $900 million Medicare fraud conspiracy targeting elderly patients. In that case, we allege that the defendants caused unnecessary, highly expensive wound grafts to be applied to elderly Medicare patients, many of whom were terminally ill in hospice care. This was done without coordination with the patient's treating physicians and without proper treatment for infection. Medicare paid the defendants more than $1 million per patient for these unnecessary grafts.
Before I look specifically at the instance that he just talked about, let's just backtrack for a second here because I want you to get a full understanding of the scope of this. 1.6 billion in actual losses, 2.75 billion in intended losses because of this fraud schemes, because of these multiple fraud schemes in 32 federal districts across the United States. 76 doctors, nurse practitioners, and other licensed medical professionals. 193 people charged. That's a lot. And look here, this is what they're talking about they seized. And this is what the Attorney General was mentioning here. He says over 231 million in cash, luxury vehicles, gold, and other assets. They are taking it back. He says it does not matter if you are a trafficker in a drug cartel or a corporate executive or medical professional employed by a healthcare company. If you profit from the unlawful distribution of controlled substances, you will be held accountable. Here's the amniotic wound grafts, and I'm going to go to the actual indictment. I think I have a copy of that. We're going to take a look at that. But this gives us a summary here of what was going on. Charges were filed against 4 individuals who allegedly filed 900 million. That is a lot of money in false and fraudulent claims to Medicare for amniotic wound grafts used on Medicare patients. So understand this. If you have a senior who is on Medicare, and somebody starts saying, we need to do this type of surgery or we need to do this type of procedure, you need to be looking out for your family members and your friends. As alleged, the defendants targeted elderly Medicare patients, many of whom were terminally ill. The defendants caused medically unnecessary and expensive amniotic grafts to be applied to those vulnerable patients' wounds indiscriminately and without even really talking to their treating physician. In just 16 months, Medicare paid two defendants, just two of the defendants, more than $600 million. More than $600 million as a result of their fraud scheme, paying on average more than $1 million per patient for these unnecessary grafts. These two defendants owned wound care companies in Arizona and received more than $330 million in illegal kickbacks in exchange for purchasing the grafts billed to Medicare. In connection with the charges, the government seized over $70 million, including 4 luxury vehicles, gold, jewelry, and cash. So this helps you understand all of these people you see riding around in these expensive vehicles, dressing really nicely, having all of this jewelry, spending money at fancy restaurants, going on these luxurious vacations. Some of these people have gotten this money through fraud, and it's fraud that they've perpetrated on vulnerable people like our seniors that we have got to look out for. I tell you, the scammers are out there 24/7 coming up with any and everything. And think about it. Here's the piece to really consider with this. This is not a profession that is lacking in being paid. We're talking about physicians and nurse practitioners here. These are not people who are being paid $15 an hour. Okay? Now, I'm not throwing everybody in this profession under the bus. There are some very good professionals in the medical care industry. I'm sure they are doing a fabulous job and take care of their elderly clients very well, very well. But you have people like this who, like I said, they aren't out on the street homeless, not having money to pay for food or shelter or transportation. No, look at what they said. Medicare paid two defendants more than $600 million as a result of their fraud scheme. These were people that were simply greedy. There is no other way to put this. They were simply greedy. Here's a document that we're going to take a look at. It says it's been redacted for public disclosure. These were two of the parties. This is the indictment: conspiracy, healthcare fraud, conspiracy, receipt of kickbacks, transactional money laundering, forfeiture allegations. It says the defendants, together with their co-conspirators, targeted elderly Medicare patients, many of whom were terminally ill in hospice care, and caused medically unnecessary amniotic wound allografts to be applied to those vulnerable patients. As my daughter likes to say, there's a special place reserved for these people after their death. It says the defendants and their co-conspirators, individually and through companies they owned and controlled, caused more than approximately $900 million in false and fraudulent claims to Medicare for these medically unnecessary allografts applied to less than approximately 500 patients. That's a lot of people. You got to be working hard to decide that, we're just $900 million, almost 500 patients that you have subjected to these unnecessary procedures. In addition to the criminal complaint, I can imagine that the families are really upset. Let me talk about a couple of different parties here who may have some concerns. The families. First of all, you're hearing about this, and now it's out in the news. The Department of Justice has released its findings. You're seeing the indictments. And what you're finding out now is that your loved one, your senior, your elder, your grandmother, your great aunt, your parent, may have unnecessarily had to go through this treatment because somebody else was greedy and wanted more money. And in the back of your mind, you're thinking, yes, criminal court should go to jail, but there also may be a civil side to this too, that these families may say, hey, you know what? We're going to file lawsuits against them. The estates of these families may consider going after them, depending upon when these things occurred. This is just unprecedented. I don't think I've ever seen a case like this with these amount of numbers, this many patients, this many people that you did this to for this amount of money. This is unbelievable. The second party I want to mention, so I just talked about the family. The second parties that I want to mention is a lot of times when you have a healthcare company like this, you have other employees. And so now with the fraud that you have hurt on these other people and money that you have gotten through fraud, you now have employees who are going to be out of work. You have employees who are now associated with you and your mess that you caused. And I'm sure some of these people are just like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Here I am. I'm the receptionist. I'm the admin. I'm the office manager. I'm the person staying on top of the scheduling. I'm the social media director or something for the company. And now you find out that the company that you have been working for, you're just showing up for work. And so one of the things I think people don't keep in mind when they see some of this, that it could be you're just going to your regular job. You have no idea what the people who own the company are doing. And let me tell you, as an attorney, you get to the point where you start telling your clients to keep your circle tight, keep your circle close. Know who it is that you're doing business with. And don't just be signing up to do business with any and everybody who wants to do business with you. One of the things that I think catches people off guard sometimes is when people start coming to them saying, hey, I'd love to work with you. I've seen what you've been doing. And it can be nice to have people say, oh, you're doing such a great job in the community. We see the work that you're doing in your profession, like medical care. And we want to partner with you. We want to open a new facility that provides these kinds of services. And you think, oh, well, this is a great opportunity for me to expand. This is a great opportunity for me to get in another area that I've been thinking about and considering. And so you think these things are good opportunities. And yes, a lot of times you do vet them. You do go through and see whether or not this is a party you want to work with, what their finances look like. Do they have a good strategy and plan in place? Are they even ready to do something like this? Are you even ready to do something like this? And so you go through that sort of analysis. But there are other times, I'm telling you, people are just showing up for work. It's not until you've been there for 3 months that sometimes you realize that the parties that you're working with are not parties that you want to be working with for a lot of reasons. Now, I have known people that have left jobs because they felt like there were some questionable activities that were going on. They weren't necessarily sure because they didn't have access to, they're not on the management team, so they don't have access to high level records and financial documents and things of that nature. But they were just like, I just don't feel like this is a good fit for me because maybe some of the procedures, some of your standard operating procedures that you do are just not in line with how I would like to see work done. And if you're doing this in this manner, maybe there's some other things that you're doing too that I don't particularly care for. People have some challenges here because what I often find is people say, well, I have to have a job. I have to have a job. I have to put food on the table. I have to pay for a place to live. I have to provide for my family. How am I supposed to do that without a job? I just can't up and leave a job without having something else to go to. You can be in a very conflicted place about how you find work that is meaningful, that provides for you when that work makes you question, their value system and their ethics. And do you want to be associated with them? Let me tell you, I've worked with a lot of people and people will say time and time again, I have to have a job. I have to have a job. Back to this indictment. Let me scroll down a little bit. Okay, so they go through the defendants. So you had Alexandra, who co-owned, controlled, and operated this company here. They have, and then Jeffrey King, who is actually the spouse. So they're married, Jeffrey King and Alexandra Gerke. I guess that's how you pronounce it. They were married in or around February 24th, and they had formed these companies. And you can see here, Medicare provided a reimbursement based on certain rules and requirements that it had in place. Purpose of the conspiracy was for the defendants, Alexandra and Jeffrey, and their co-conspirators to unlawfully enrich themselves by, among other things, submitting and causing the submission of false and fraudulent claims, you see there, that were medically unnecessary and unreasonable, ineligible for reimbursement, and procured through illegal kickbacks. And then they tried to conceal that. So let me just break down some of the things that they were doing. So they had, as you see here, contracted with medically untrained sales representatives to arrange for and recommend the ordering and purchasing of the allografts and to refer patients to enrolled Medicare providers. Alexandra and Jeffrey paid the nurse practitioners a flat rate of $500 to $1,000 per patient encounter to apply the allografts. So think about that. You're the nurse practitioner and you decide that you're going to engage in this fraud with Alexandra and Jeffrey, and you're going to be paid a flat rate of $500 or $1,000 per patient. Here in H, it says, Jeffrey King instructed the sales representatives to go to facilities with elderly populations. This is that targeting that the U.S. Attorney General was talking about, such as nursing homes, assisted living facilities, and hospice facilities, and identify patients with a wound or wounds of any stage that would benefit from healing faster. Jeffrey King and others instructed the sales representatives to take photographs of the patient's wound, measure the size of the wound, and obtain copies of the patient's insurance card. Now, let me backtrack here to the poor employee, the sales representative. Are they aware of what's going on? You answer a job request, a job posting on LinkedIn. It says, hey, we're looking to hire sales representatives to help us sell wound grafts to those in need, those who may have wounds, especially the elderly. We want to make sure that they're taken care of. And you're reading this job posting and you're thinking, okay, well, I've done sales before. This sounds like something that I can help do. And I can learn how to do this, and I'll let this be my job. It actually sounds okay. As I state it there, it sounds like a decent job. Think about what that posting may have said. That posting can say something, just as I just said, we're looking for someone who, communicates well with elderly, with vulnerable populations, a person who maybe has a background in science and interest in biology, health, nutrition, all of that, who may have a BS degree in something related to that, science or health, or an associate degree in that, someone who may have a couple of years of experience, maybe in the industry or pharmaceutical sales, and you see you fit the bill. And it sounds okay. Think about how this can be presented to just a person looking for a job, how this can be presented. And so you finesse your resume, you finesse your cover letter, you send it on over to this company. Alexandra Gerke directed the sales representatives to target hospice facilities, stating in a meeting with sales representatives that hospice facilities were, quote, where the most money was at with her company. And then she gave indication of what they needed to look for. Look at this. Oh, sorry, Mom. It says Alexandra Gerke directed the sales representatives to order Company One's allografts only in sizes 4 to 6 centimeters or larger, despite the availability of smaller sizes of allografts, even if a patient's wound was the size of her little fingernail. So in other words, she was saying, order the bigger one, even if you only need that much. Still get the one that's this size, even though you may only need the one that's this size. Why do you think that was? Why do you think that was? They were like, look, we're trying to make some bucks here. We're going to commit our fraud really well. It says Jeffrey King pressured the nurse practitioners to apply Company One's allografts to Medicare patients without regard to medical necessity. I'm not even going to look and see whether or not they're needed. It says, without medical necessity, without a prior relationship with the patient, without reviewing the patient's medical records, without speaking to the patient's primary care physicians, and without exercising independent medical judgment. In other words, you are supposed to be thinking on your own, nurse practitioner, but you did not. They pressured you and you went along. And you took that $500 or that $1,000 for each patient, almost 400, almost 500 of them. And then you went about your merry way. The nurse practitioners applied allografts to Medicare patients that were medically unreasonable and unnecessary because, among other things, the wounds were infected. The wounds had already healed. The wounds were not responding to the allografts. The wounds would not heal because of the terminally ill patient's comorbidities, and the allografts exceeded the size of the wound. Just all sorts of things wrong here that you guys did. It says the nurse practitioners applied allografts to terminally ill patients receiving palliative care in hospice facilities. Some patients died within days or the same day of the allograft application. You gotta be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. Down here at Q, it says Alexandra Gerke, Jeffrey King, and others concealed and disguised illegal kickbacks by, among other ways, causing sham invoices to be issued that reflected the full price, not the rebated price if they had gotten a rebate, of the allografts, and opened a so-called joint venture bank account to conceal the transfer of the illegal kickbacks. Here's the thing. I don't understand why people don't realize that all of this money can be tracked. Like, you receive it from an account over here, it's transferred to an account over here. There are tracking mechanisms. So I'm not sure why people always think that you cannot find these things out. It is always amazing to me that they think they're smarter than the people doing the research and taking a look at this. It's just not that hard to follow. It's not that hard. You know what the rule is. They always say, follow the money, follow the money. So what were they doing with all of this money? Look at paragraph S here. It says they used the illegal kickbacks and illegal proceeds of their fraud scheme to fund their lavish and opulent lifestyle, which included purchases of a $300,000 Ferrari, a $230,000 Mercedes-Benz, a $640,000 house, a $5.8 million house, and over 520,000 in gold bars, gold coins, and jewelry. They track all the money. See, this is what I'm talking about. You can't untrack money, unless you're moving cash. You cannot track. It says received an illegal kickback in the amount of $15 million. This is over $15 million via wire transfer from a bank account. All this is trackable. All of this, I don't understand how they think that this is not going to be noticed. Look here. Alexandra received an illegal kickback in the approximate amount of $81 million via wire transfer from this bank account to the other bank account. All they have to do, subpoena the records, go through the documents, look at where the money was coming from, where it was coming in from Medicare, just follow the money, and then where it's going out to. They can also see where they paid the nurse practitioners, so all of this is very easy. And again, look, they've got the amounts right there. All of this is trackable. You're not hiding any of this. And now we see the actual property that has been purchased here. 1637 North Sunset Drive in Tempe, Arizona. The neighbors are looking at that house now. The neighbors are probably going, oh no. The neighbors have been going, oh no, for a while, right? Because it's not like this stuff happened the day before they saw it on the news, There's the property, the approximate amount, 638. Look at that. You've got the Ferrari, you've got the Mercedes-Benz. The Ferrari's a little older. Look at that, 2016. The Mercedes is pretty new. Then you've got the home in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm telling you, if I'm the person looking for a job at this point, how do you know? Like, how can you tell legitimate companies from companies that are doing things like this? It is really hard. It's really hard. How do you know? There's no way for you to really know whether or not the company that you get a job with is on the up and up, and that the people who own the company all aren't out there doing like a bunch of stuff. Okay. And you can see here they have some of the properties in trust. You can see this one is in an irrevocable trust. The Ferrari is titled to corporation along with the Mercedes Benz, all of them titled to a corporation. The gold bars, gold coins, and jewelry, 19 million just sitting in a bank account. And, yeah, they had an $8 million life insurance policy, I guess, that was purchased. Look at all, you can see money just sitting in accounts here for the businesses. Yeah. So there you have it. That's a whole lot of fraud there. That's a whole lot for anybody to try to keep up with. So a couple of takeaways with this. As I said before, the first biggest takeaway is making sure you're looking out for your family members. This particular scheme, and there are a whole lot of others. Remember, they said over 100, almost 200 people, I think it was 193 people have been charged in connection with this. That's a lot of people. That's also a lot of collateral damage, right? People who worked at those companies and had related contracts or business opportunities with those companies, who are now like looking at their own stuff saying, okay, they have left me with a mess because I was associated with you. Trust me, I know exactly what they're talking about. So the first piece is what's going down there, how it impacts seniors when they're being targeted. I'm telling you, there are more people out there trying to scam seniors because they know that they're older. There's nobody really looking out for them. It's a lot easier to get away with it. Okay. That's the first piece. The second piece to worry about, and I think we don't talk about this enough, is people looking for jobs. Looking for jobs. How do you find a job and know that, what are the red flags that I'm supposed to be looking for? How am I supposed to know? How am I supposed to know whether or not the owners are on the up and up, and whether or not they're filing things right, whether or not they're trying to scam someone or the government? How am I supposed to know? It's going to be really difficult. It's going to be really difficult if you're just employee number 429 at some company, a large company, or employee number 12 at a smaller company. It's going to be really hard for you to know because you're not in a position to have access to information that may help you make that decision. And so you will likely be collateral damage here. You will be the one who won't have a job when this all goes down. We'll have to figure out how you're going to put this on your resume and what kind of conversation you're going to have with potential future employers. So best of luck to you all. I hope this information is helpful. It's almost kind of, I don't get any comfort in having these conversations because it doesn't feel good. Like, it does not feel good to have these kinds of conversations because I don't understand why they had to be so greedy. I just really don't. Like I said, it's not like they were in a profession where they were not going to make money that would allow them to build up a strong economic future for them and their family. That usually is not the case. Okay. I get it. There are a lot of costs, and doctors and nurse practitioners and others in the industry aren't making as much as they used to. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of requirements that you have to keep up with. Got to check the box on everything. A lot of rules, a lot of regulations. I get it. It's tough. It can be demanding. It is a demanding profession, and it asks a lot of people and a lot of those who choose to practice being a physician. But this kind of greed and what was done to those seniors is something that, excuse me, is unimaginable. But like I said, take care, keep your eyes and ears to the ground, and just remember, those scammers are out there working 24/7. They do not take weekends, holidays, or vacations off. Peace.